Journalists Roundtable is a half-hour discussion with Pennsylvania journalists about the week's top political news and current events. Journalists Roundtable is a production of PCN, a nonprofit television network. Listeners like you make our programming possible. To learn more about PCN's mission and to support PCN with a donation, visit PCNTV.com. This link and others can be found in our show notes. We appreciate your support.
Welcome to this week's edition of Journalists Roundtable. I'm Francine Schertzer. Our guests this week are Tom Riese, state capitol reporter with WESA in Pittsburgh, Steve Ulrich, managing editor of Politics PA, and Gillian McGoldrick, Harrisburg reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Gillian, we'll start with you. Earlier this week, President Donald Trump endorsed Stacey Garrity in her bid for governor. What impact do you think that endorsement will have on her campaign?
Yeah, that is the big coveted endorsement. Obviously, President Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. It seemed like it may have caught them a little bit off guard. They had not anticipated it so early, but it's a big deal. And it will also follow her, obviously, into the general election, where one of the core things that Governor Shapiro, as he is seeking re-election, will definitely be tying to her is her longtime support of President Trump. She really has been over the years been a really, really strong Trump supporter, and so I think it will have an impact for sure. It just is a matter of whether it is a good impact in an election that is already really favorable to Democrats.
Perhaps more broadly, what impact will the actions of the Trump administration have on the elections in general this year? Steve, your thoughts?
I think that obviously anytime in a midterm, you're going to find the party in power is going to lose seats in Congress. And right now, with the unpopularity of some of the Trump administration's policies when it comes to immigration, that could be detrimental to Gary's campaign. Now, that said, I think it was important for her to be able to be acknowledged by President Trump. When President Trump came to Mount Pocono back in December, he welcomed a lot of Pennsylvania elected Republicans as dignitaries and missed Stacey Garrity on stage. So for him to come out now and give her the acknowledgement as a true America First patriot, I think is important. The question will be whether or not Governor Shapiro will be able to tie her to Trump in such a way that he's going to be able to capitalize on that, because he has been such an outspoken critic of the Trump administration policies.
Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the governor sue the Trump administration a lot. I know that is going to come up again and again, probably even before the general election. And I know that the distance that he likes to put between himself and the Trump administration will also dig in there to his likely competitor and Ian Garrity as the nominee, probably.
The day of the president's endorsement happened to be the same day that Governor Josh Shapiro's memoir, Where We Keep the Light, was released. Was that intentional?
I wouldn't say, I'm not sure that it was intentional. President Trump posted his endorsement on Truth Social, and he often will randomly late evening post a bunch of endorsements. I'm not sure that it has to do, he really hasn't talked about Governor Shapiro in a long time, and in his endorsement he did not talk about Governor Shapiro at all. So he's sort of, I think, off of his radar for the moment. So I don't think that it was intentional. I think that he also made an endorsement in Wisconsin and may have made some other ones that same evening. So I think he just has a list that he, when he's ready, he's going to publish.
Jill, if you don't mind, I think I'll politely disagree. I think with the book tour going on right now, with the governor appearing on Late Night with Stephen Colbert, something tells me there may have been something to try to take some of the limelight off the governor in that respect. When you post something on Truth Social at that hour, you're never really sure what kind of impact it's going to have. But I think it may have given some of us just enough distraction from the governor being in front of, whether he's on The View, whether he's appearing on Morning Joe, et cetera, to give us something else to focus upon.
That's
What
fair, yeah. Yeah, this national media blitz, as we know, President Trump does really like to watch TV, so I'm sure he has seen some Governor Shapiro on his TV over the last week. Though I'm not sure how much he was watching whatever the MS Now. I'm not sure he was watching much of that, where Governor Shapiro appeared a few times, or Colbert, or otherwise.
what's the purpose of releasing a memoir at this point in Governor Shapiro's career?
I mean, we've heard a lot of people speculate that, hey, this sort of biography is a tease towards a 2028 presidential run. And I think every article I've read, including the people on this call, have, had to hint at that, saying, like, yeah, this is a re-election year for governor, but he's widely expected to run. And I feel like one blurb I read about it was saying, like, this is Shapiro introducing himself to folks who maybe haven't caught him on TV, or read about him, or heard about his backstory. So I don't know. It's that the timing is probably right for that. It seems like. I don't know. What do you all think?
I know that Gavin Newsom is going to be releasing a book next week. You think back to Barack Obama when he was the first term senator putting out his book. It just seems as though that's what you do to introduce yourself to a national audience, truly. And if Josh Shapiro did not have any plans to run for president, I'm not sure why anyone would be interested in his book. I'm sure I haven't read it. That's probably not the nicest thing in the world to say. I'm sure there's some fascinating things in there, but it's not designed for me. It's designed for people around the country to be introduced to him.
Yeah, over and over again, I've heard from political scientists that this is there's really like a playbook that all potential presidential candidates follow before they decide whether they're going to jump in the race. And I have read the book, and it's 257 pages, in case anybody is wondering. But it really does it defines him, and his childhood, like how that sort of shaped his ideology today, how he is willing to challenge other Democratic officials, whether to tell them that he disagrees with them or otherwise. He's really proud of that fact. He talks about his disagreements with former Governor Wolf, as well as with the Biden-Harris administration. And he also, obviously, one of the big things is it appears to put some distance between himself and his attempt at or his involvement in the Veep stakes in 2024, when he was considered as running mate to be Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate at the time. And he really he retells that entire situation. He retells the arson of his home at the governor's residence last year. So you really get the full gamut, and you even get stuff about UPMC and Highmark and that fight, very, very Pennsylvania fight that he has a whole chapter on. So readers in Pennsylvania and elsewhere, I think will learn a lot about him. Though, like Steve said, it is, what is the purpose if not to be introducing yourself to a national audience for a potential presidential run?
If I could zero in on one part of the book that was highly reported upon, and that was Governor Shapiro questioning whether his Jewish faith led to some of the questions that he was asked when he was being considered for vice president. What does he have to gain by calling out and perhaps criticizing some national Democrats?
Jill, as the reader of the book, we'll probably start with you.
Fair. I was waiting to see. So he I think that there was a lot of, on the campaign trail, there was a lot of claims of anti-Semitism generally against Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign, and really like Democrats at large, the far left, who really had been centering the war on Gaza as like a core issue to them, and oftentimes that is equated with anti-Semitism, and sometimes it is, it veers into anti-Semitism. And so I want the quote from his book, I will read, is so he is asked at one point, whether he is an agent, if he had ever been an agent for Israel, and he like took obviously immediate offense to the question. Some of the other presidential, or I'm sorry, vice presidential candidates at the time have sort of like stepped in and said that they had similar questions asked of them. Governor Tim Walz was reported to have been asked whether he was asked, or whether he was an agent for China, because he had visited China a bunch during his career. And then also Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, he didn't necessarily say he was asked that specific question. He's also Jewish and was in the running for the Veep Stakes, but he said that like the questions are really tough, and that you should be able to respond to all of those really tough questions. So yeah, I'm that is all that I have on that.
Well, let me shift gears for just a moment and talk a little bit about the other side of the ticket. Presumptive Republican nominee Stacey Garrity. Earlier this morning, she announced an endorsement for Jason Ritchie as lieutenant governor candidate. What's the significance of her endorsement, being that those are separate elections for governor and for lieutenant governor in the primary?
Yeah, I mean, we just saw that announcement come through. I'm hoping to chat with him a little bit later today. Um, those that were covering the Capitol, myself not included at the time during Shapiro's first run, I know that when he endorsed Austin Davis, that made a huge impact. I don't think the other uh, lieutenant governor primary runners got even close to the Davis's numbers, and the fact, like you just mentioned, Francine, that voters choose not just one ticket with those two names next to each other, could make a big difference. And I think the pool of lieutenant governor candidates now for the GOP are growing. I think there's been at least two or three others besides Jason Ritchie, and Steve and I were speculating whether or not we're going to hear we would hear from many others coming up.
Tom,
I think it's important that Garrity was able to reach out and connect with someone from Allegheny County. The head of the Allegheny County GOP is going to open doors for her in Pittsburgh. There have already been questions on whether or not she's going to have the ability to generate the type of fundraising operation that's going to be needed to compete against the $30 million war chest that Josh Shapiro has. So hopefully being able to perhaps open some doors in Western Pennsylvania through Jason Ritchie and through the Allegheny County GOP will be important. And I think it's also a way to put it out there right now that I have President Trump's endorsement. I now have someone else that I could back as my lieutenant governor rather than Doug Mastriano, who ran against Shapiro in 2022. So I think it's a win for the Garrity campaign that more and more people are entering, and especially someone like Jason Ritchie.
Tom, if I can go back to you for just a moment. Not too long ago, you had written that Stacey Garrity, I believe back in 2022, said that she believed Donald Trump was the winner of the election. And then more recently, she had revised her remarks. Can you talk a little bit about that situation and whether you see any other evidence of her perhaps moderating her message as she's running for governor?
Sure. Yeah, I think we were all at this this PCN press luncheon when she was asked about it, and I think the attempt to walk back remarks saying that Trump won the election in 2020, whether or not you feel it was convincing or not, it could still be up for debate. She said that she sort of got carried away at this rally. It was a congressional, backing rally, and Trump was there. And she said, we all know that you won. And while she didn't specifically say that she knows Trump lost, she said she was painfully aware that Trump did not win, in that, Biden enacted certain policies she disagreed with. I know that the Pennsylvania Democratic Party was quick to push back and say, it's not the answer that I think everyone was expecting you to say if you're really pushing back. But we still wrote about it and saying that, she tried to put a little bit more distance between herself and that remark, but she did say that she wouldn't, challenge the results of this governor's race if she were to lose. So I think she's trying to take maybe a different stance there now that she's directly in the middle of this race instead of like a bystander when she was commenting before.
I think it's one of those situations where people want to hear a yes or a no versus well, I used the name president in front of Joe Biden a lot. So therefore, obviously, I recognized Joe Biden as the president. And I'm not sure I'm not sure that's going to stop us from asking those questions just because you've used the name President Joe Biden in a number of speeches or you've signed off on things that list him that way.
At her PA Press Club appearance, Stacey Garrity had mentioned on a few occasions that Josh Shapiro is expected to run for president in 2 years, and there have been prior occasions where he was elected into an office and then he left that office he was holding early to run for a higher office. Is that a valid concern for voters?
Yeah, I think it is, and it's one that Governor Shapiro will not be able to avoid, especially like during his national press blitz of this last week. He has been asked multiple times in different ways whether he's going to run for 2028, and his answer always is, I'm laser focused on the midterms," and that is the same type of response he's had previously, is that he's focused on what is directly ahead of him. He did that when he was attorney general, prior to his pretty quick announcement that he was going to run for governor after he'd been reelected in 2020. So it is a fair question, and it is one that I think will be it'll be one of the main attack points from the Republican Party. Though I have also heard from some political scientists who have said, like, if that is your best, if that's your best attack against him, you really need to work on, you need more attacks. And obviously Republicans will have they have broader ideological issues and with Governor Shapiro's leadership, but it's one that won't go away, and he is gonna have to answer it over and over again, and whether he likes it or not.
I agree with that sentiment. He's going to be asked. He's going to deflect. And I agree as well that the Republicans need to come up with a better response. It can't just be Governor Shapiro is not going to be paying any attention to Pennsylvania if you reelect him. It's going to have to focus on why Stacey Garrity makes a better candidate for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And fortunately, she has plenty of time to make that case, but he can't keep falling back on Josh Shapiro is bad, I'm good, without more of a plan.
If I could just bring up the other side of that same issue, if Stacey Garrity is successful in her bid for governor, wouldn't she technically be guilty of doing the same thing by vacating her current role as state treasurer if she were to become governor?
That could be the quickest way for Josh Shapiro to respond to the charge, is just turning the tables. And I'm not sure there's a proper answer for that. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the differences between those two decisions. One would be, leaving a state office to the highest state office versus someone else, leaving potentially Pennsylvania for a different, for the biggest office. We've heard the line used again. It's like Shapiro has his mind set on Pennsylvania Avenue, not Pennsylvania. But and again, I think what Jill said makes sense the most. It's like these sort of things. I'm not sure how much the average voter cares as much about these things. Really coming at someone for either candidate for being like more ambitious is sort of like not the hardest attack.
With the governor's race at the top of the ticket this year, how will that impact down ticket races, including the congressional races in Pennsylvania?
I think it's a fascinating year for Pennsylvania in the midterms. You look at 4 critical congressional district races, PA 1, 7, 8, and 10 in particular, that not only could impact the balance of power amongst the Pennsylvania delegation, but those 4 races alone could switch the majority in the U.S. House. So I was asked recently to rank them in order of importance or how things could change. And in my mind, the 8th congressional district, I think that Rob Bresnahan might be in the most vulnerable in that situation. He's going to be running against the very popular mayor of Scranton, Paige Cognetti, who already has the support of Governor Shapiro, is going to be backed by national Democratic organizations. And given Bresnahan's challenges he's had with his stock trading concerns, I think that makes him the most vulnerable. Ryan McKenzie in the Lehigh Valley in PA 7 is going to also face a huge challenge. The question is who will come out of the Democratic race. Right now, Bob Brooks looks like one of the favorites. PA 10, Scott Perry is probably vulnerable just because Cumberland County, just to the west of the capital city, seems to be turning more purple than red. And will Janelle Stelson be able to make a stronger run? Brian Fitzpatrick in the first district in Bucks County just still seems to be impenetrable. But some of the moves that he has made going against President Trump, whether it's with one big beautiful bill, whether it's on healthcare issues, he seems to be tacking a little bit more toward the left, and gives you the sense that he may feel a little more vulnerable as well.
Gillian, what congressional races look vulnerable to you?
Yeah, those same four are definitely the ones that that national Democrats are going to pour a ton of money into. I think that the PA 10 one will be pretty interesting. Janelle Stelson was really quick to reannounce her campaign to run for that. I think that she came pretty close last time, which much closer than Scott Perry had anticipated. And so, and with Governor Shapiro's support also really early on, I think that it is Scott Perry's to lose for sure.
Tom, what seats are you looking at?
I'm actually admittedly a little more focused on some state legislative races. We know there were some resignations because people got other jobs, whether that's county common pleas judge spots or county executive, or Lehigh Valley. We're really interested in this just western suburbs of Pittsburgh. This seat centered around like Coriopolis. Rep. Anita Kulik, who'd been in the legislature for 10 years, says she's not running for re-election. There's a pretty healthy primary race set up right now, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. And while I think it's been a pretty blue state legislative seat, the Kulik herself was like kind of a more moderate or conservative Democrat. And I think the Republicans they feel like they have a better chance. 'Cause I think a lot of times they point to the fact that Kulik was a pro-life candidate. So maybe some issues that could sway people less on just the party affiliation there.
Tom, do you have any
Tom, it's
early?
fascinating. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Tom, I think it's really interesting. I think this is all tied together, because you look at Governor Shapiro's coattails. Who's he going to be able, if he's victorious, who's he going to be able to carry across the finish line with him? Will he be able to flip the Pennsylvania State Senate and make it Democrat? Will the Democrats be able to hold their 1-seat majority in the House? If it's a split legislature and Shapiro wins, that's going to make 2027, when he is, quote unquote, running for president, very, very difficult. So it all does tie together, and it's really a fascinating time for politics in the Commonwealth.
One other race that stands out as having perhaps an interesting primary, Steve, we should know Politics PA is sponsoring a candidate forum in the 3rd Congressional District. That's in the Philadelphia region. This is the seat that Dwight Evans is retiring from. What should our viewers know about this primary?
We have 13 candidates who have currently filed their paperwork for the seat, and Politics PA, in conjunction with our sister site Philly Daily and the Center City Residents Association, is going to sponsor a congressional forum on Monday, February 9th at 7 o'clock at the Church of the Holy Trinity on Rittenhouse Square. We hope to bring in the top 6 candidates as we try to sift through who's done the most through fundraising, perhaps if we find any polling information, and have them come talk about the issues that are important to Center City, Philadelphia, while of course looking at nationwide. We're fortunate to have the support of PCN, and we're looking forward to bringing that to the citizens of Pennsylvania statewide on Monday the 9th.
I want to shift gears just briefly. In Harrisburg earlier this month, Robert F. Kennedy appeared to talk a little bit about the new national nutritional guidelines. I know Tom and Gillian, you both covered this event. Can you talk a little bit about the environment and why he was met with protesters?
Sure, go ahead, Jill.
Oh. So I didn't cover any of the protests, but more broadly, he often faces criticism for his actions at the Health and Human Services and also at the CDC for essentially rewriting the prescriptions, or not prescriptions, the list of vaccines that babies and infants and children should receive. He has said at the Harrisburg event that it is essentially just setting bringing down the number of vaccines that infants and children receive in America to match that of European countries. Oftentimes, the medical community has rejected that and argued that it will just make Americans and children more vulnerable to these to diseases. So he has had a pretty controversial time at the CDC and at HHS, and I think if he were to come back again, he would be faced with more protests for sure.
Tom, last question to you. How are Pennsylvania's elected officials responding to the federal efforts to reduce the required vaccines?
We have some state lawmakers stepping up to sort of protect access through pharmacies, and Shapiro administration is also sort of allied with this northeastern state, I guess kind of like a regional compact, saying, hey, we're not going to go by federal standards on this. We're going to stick with more state-backed, or like the Biden administration era sort of vaccine scheduling. And so they won't be updating, at least right now, they won't be updating the recommendations for Pennsylvania kids. So some of the state legislature action too could come into play here, but I think some of the executive action that Shapiro's taken so far has protected that.
I'd like to thank our guests, Tom Riese, State Capitol reporter for WESA in Pittsburgh, Steve Ulrich, managing editor for Politics PA, and Gillian McGoldrick, Harrisburg reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Thank you all for watching this week's edition of Journalist Roundtable. I'm Francine Schertzer.
Full episodes of politics and policy content like the program you just listened to are available to stream with the PCN Select app. Discover other shows like the Capitol Preview, On the Issues, candidate interviews, and more. To learn more about PCN's mission and to support PCN with a donation, visit PCNTV.com. This link and others can be found in our show notes. We appreciate your support.